Nobody could tame Vampire King's bat. Then a little girl did something shocking. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. There was a small, quiet village nestled at the edge of a vast, dark forest. People in the village spoke in whispers about the terrifying vampire king who ruled the land. His name alone sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest warriors. But it was not only his frightening power that made him feared, it was his bat. The Vampire King's bat was said to be the most dangerous creature in existence. It was a massive, shadowy figure that soared through the sky, its wings capable of creating fierce gusts of wind that could knock a grown man off his feet. The bat was untamable, a beast that no one dared to approach. It was said that anyone who tried to control it was doomed to fail. Many had tried, even the Vampire King himself, but the bat was wild and free. No one could match its strength or its will. For years, it terrorized the villages, swooping down from the skies at night, causing destruction wherever it went. People lived in constant fear of the bat's wrath. But everything changed the day a small, innocent girl entered the scene. Her name was Lily. She was no more than 8 years old, with bright eyes and a heart full of curiosity. Unlike the other villagers who trembled at the thought of the bat, Lily had no fear. She had grown up hearing stories about the Vampire King and his terrifying bat, but she didn't let that stop her from exploring the world around her. One afternoon, as Lily wandered into the forest near the castle, she stumbled upon the Vampire King's bat. It was perched high on a tree branch, its glowing eyes watching her intently. Instead of running away in terror like the others, Lily stood still and gazed up at the bat. She had heard that animals could sense emotions, so she took a deep breath, calming her racing heart. She whispered softly, "I won't hurt you." To her surprise, the bat didn't attack. Instead, it tilted its head, as if considering her words. Lily slowly stepped closer, her small feet making no sound as she moved. The bat didn't flinch. Instead, it allowed her to approach, and Lily gently reached out her hand. She had no idea what she was doing, but she instinctively felt that she needed to show kindness to this creature. To her amazement, the bat didn't retreat. It allowed her touch. That's when Lily realized something no one had ever known before. The bat was not just a beast. It was a creature in pain. Its wildness wasn't out of malice, but out of fear and loneliness. In that moment, Lily's heart filled with compassion, and the bond between them was formed. She didn't tame the bat with force, as others had tried, but with her heart, her kindness, and her unwavering belief that even the wildest of creatures could be understood. The bat's fierce eyes softened, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel the need to strike. It was no longer the uncontrollable beast of legend. It was Lily's friend, a friend she had tamed with nothing more than a gentle spirit and a pure heart. Little did anyone know, the bat would soon play a key role in changing the destiny of not only Lily, but the Vampire King himself. As Lily stood in the forest, gazing at the massive bat that had just allowed her to approach, the air around her seemed to shift. The once feared creature of darkness, the bat that no one had ever dared to come near, was now calm. It sat on the branch, its eyes no longer filled with aggression but with something that resembled curiosity. Lily could hardly believe what she was seeing. She had heard the stories, of course. The tales of the Vampire King's bat that terrorized the land, of the great beast that no one could tame. But now, here it was, letting her get close, its massive wings folded gently against its body. She felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. This creature, this misunderstood beast, was no longer just a terror to the villages. It was something more, something that needed care and attention. The bat blinked slowly, as if it understood that Lily had no intention of harming it. She took a deep breath and whispered softly, "You're not alone anymore." The bat tilted its head slightly, acknowledging her words, and Lily felt a connection form between them. It was an unspoken bond, one forged not through force or fear, but through understanding. The bat had been wild for so long, running from the very thing it needed most, compassion. And now, Lily was offering it exactly that. She reached her hand out again, and this time, the bat didn't hesitate. It allowed her to touch its sleek, cool feathers. Lily smiled, her heart swelling with warmth. She wasn't afraid anymore. But as she stood there, her mind wandered to the Vampire King. He had to be nearby, right? He must know the bat was out here. But what did he think of Lily's approach? What would he do when he found out that someone had gotten close to the creature he could not control? Little did she know, the Vampire King had been watching from a distance. Hidden in the shadows, he had seen everything. The way the bat had reacted to the girl, the way she had touched it with such gentleness. He had been prepared to intervene, to ensure that no one else could challenge his power, especially not a little girl. But now, he was uncertain. He had never seen the bat behave like this before. It was as though the creature recognized something in Lily. Something different. As Lily turned to leave, still deep in thought, she caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of her eye. The Vampire King, tall and imposing, stepped out of the shadows, his eyes glowing with a piercing amber light. Lily froze, not in fear, but in wonder. She had heard stories about him, of course, but she had never imagined he would be so captivating. His presence was overwhelming, his aura radiating power. He walked slowly toward her, his gaze fixed on the bat, then back to her. "You," he said, his voice low and commanding. "You tamed it." Lily didn't know how to respond. She had never spoken to the Vampire King before, but she couldn't deny what had happened. "I didn't tame it," she said softly. "I just understood it." The Vampire King studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. He had been watching for so long, observing, waiting for someone to do what he could never do. And now, this little girl had done the impossible. She had bridged the gap between them. The bat, which had once been a symbol of fear, was now calm. And in that calm, the Vampire King saw something he had not expected: hope. "You have no fear of it?" he asked, his tone curious. Lily shook her head. "I've never been afraid of anything. Not if it doesn't want to hurt me." The Vampire King's gaze softened, just slightly. "You're different," he said quietly. "Most would run at the sight of my bat." "I'm not most people," Lily replied with a small smile. "I can see the good in it, even if no one else can." The Vampire King stared at her for a long moment, his thoughts a whirlwind. He had never met anyone like her. She was small, but her heart was strong, and in that moment, he realized something that had eluded him for centuries. Power was not always about control. Sometimes, it was about letting go. He nodded slowly, his eyes not leaving her. "You've done something no one else could. You've earned its trust." Lily blinked, surprised by his words. I did." The Vampire King gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Yes, you did. And for that, you have my respect." But there was more in his voice than respect. There was something else. Something deeper. He wasn't sure what it was yet, but he would find out. For the first time in centuries, he felt something stir inside him. An emotion he hadn't felt in a long time. Admiration. And perhaps, just perhaps, something more. Lily looked down at the bat, which was now calmly resting on the branch. It seemed to sense the shift in the air, its wings fluttering slightly, as if it too had recognized the change. "What now?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. The Vampire King's gaze softened further. "Now, you and the bat are part of something much larger than either of you realized. And perhaps, you will change everything." Lily didn't understand what he meant, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life, and the life of the Vampire King's bat, had just begun a new chapter. One that would bring about changes neither of them could have imagined. As the days passed, Lily remained at the castle, her days filled with the quiet companionship of the bat and the occasional encounters with the Vampire King. He had given her the freedom to stay, watching from the shadows as she spent more time with his creature. The bat, which had once been a symbol of terror, now followed her around the castle grounds, its once malevolent gaze now softened by the kindness Lily had shown it. It was as if the world had shifted, and in its place was a bond that no one, not even the Vampire King, could break. Yet, despite the calmness between Lily and the bat, something lingered in the air. There was an undercurrent of tension, a sense that the Vampire King was watching her more closely than he ever had before. Lily had noticed it, though she hadn't said anything. She wasn't sure what to make of it, but she felt an unease building in the pit of her stomach. One evening, after spending hours talking to the bat in the garden, Lily went inside to find the vampire king waiting for her by the grand staircase. He was silent, his amber eyes intense as he watched her approach. "You've spent a lot of time with my bat," he said, his voice low and controlled. Lily nodded, unsure of where this conversation was headed. "He trusts you now," the vampire king continued, his tone almost contemplative. "No one has ever managed that before." Lily smiled softly, glancing toward the courtyard where the bat now rested on the stone wall, watching them both. "I just listened to him. He didn't need to be tamed. He needed someone who understood." The vampire king's gaze softened slightly, but there was still something cold in his eyes. "That's a rare gift, Lily. To see beyond what others fear and understand what lies beneath." He paused, as if weighing his words carefully. "But I must ask you something." Lily's heart raced slightly at the shift in his tone. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension rising in the air. The vampire king stepped closer, his presence commanding. Yet there was something different about him now. It was as though the walls he had built over the centuries were starting to crumble. "Do you know what my bat truly represents?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Lily furrowed her brow. "I thought it was just a pet, something you controlled." "No," the vampire king said, shaking his head. "It is not just a pet. It is a symbol of my power, my rule. And you, Lily, have connected with it in a way no one else has. That changes everything." Lily felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" "The bat is more than just a creature," the vampire king continued, his voice darkening. "It is a protector, a guardian of my bloodline. And now, you've earned its loyalty. But that loyalty is not something to be taken lightly. It means you are bound to me in a way you cannot yet fully understand." Lily took a step back, her mind racing. "I don't want to be bound to anyone," she said quickly, her voice almost panicked. "I only wanted to help." The vampire king's gaze hardened, his earlier softness replaced by something colder. "It's too late for that, Lily. You've already chosen your path, whether you know it or not. And now, you are part of my world. You are bound to this castle, to this bat, and to me." Lily felt her heart pound in her chest. This wasn't what she had imagined when she first stepped into the forest that day. She had come here out of curiosity, out of compassion for a creature in pain. But now, she was in deeper than she could have ever anticipated. "But I never asked for any of this," she whispered, almost to herself. "You never have to ask for power, Lily," the vampire king said, his voice firm. "It is given to you, whether you seek it or not. And now that you have touched my bat, you will understand its true power." Lily swallowed hard. "What does that mean for me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. The vampire king stepped closer, his amber eyes gleaming with an emotion she couldn't quite place. "It means that you are no longer just a girl from a village. You are part of something much larger than yourself. And in this world, that power will either make you or break you." Lily didn't know what to say. She had never asked for any of this. Yet here she was, entangled in the vampire king's world. Her life changed forever. She had always felt different. But now, she understood that being different came at a price. The vampire king turned, his cape sweeping dramatically behind him as he started to walk away. "Come with me," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Lily hesitated but followed him through the grand halls of the castle. As they walked, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was unfolding around her. She had been drawn into the world of the vampire king, and now there was no turning back. The doors to the castle's inner sanctum opened, and Lily stepped inside. The air was thick with mystery, and she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The vampire king stood at the center of the room, facing a large stone altar. "This is where it all began," he said, his voice echoing in the silence. "And this is where you must make your choice. You can walk away, or you can embrace the power that comes with being part of this world." Lily stood still, her mind racing. She had no idea what was waiting for her, but one thing was certain. Her life had changed forever, and the vampire king's world was now her world too. In the days that followed, Lily found herself walking deeper into the unknown. The vampire king's words echoed in her mind. "You are part of this world now." She had no choice but to accept that the life she had known was slipping away, replaced by something far more complex and dangerous. As she stood in the grand hall of the castle, the weight of the vampire king's words pressed heavily on her. She had always felt different, but this This was a change beyond anything she could have imagined. The power, the danger, the dark allure of the Vampire King's world were now part of her life, and she wasn't sure she could ever escape it. Yet, despite the looming fear, something inside her refused to back down. There was a part of her that was drawn to this world, a curiosity that burned brighter than her fear. One evening, as the moonlight bathed the castle in a cold, eerie glow, Lily found herself once again standing in the garden, the bat perched on a nearby tree, watching her with its glowing eyes. She had grown fond of it, but the more time she spent with the creature, the more she sensed something deeper at work. The bat was not just a symbol of the Vampire King's power. It was part of something ancient, something that tied her to this world in ways she couldn't fully understand. She reached out a hand to it, her fingers brushing the cool surface of its wings. To her surprise, it didn't recoil. Instead, it allowed her to touch it, as if it recognized her presence and trusted her. The bond between them had deepened, and in that moment, Lily understood that the bat wasn't just a beast. It was a creature of ancient magic, and somehow, she was now a part of its world. As she stood there, lost in her thoughts, the sound of footsteps broke her concentration. She turned to see the Vampire King approaching, his dark figure cutting through the shadows like a predator stalking its prey. He was silent as always, his amber eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart race. "You've been spending a lot of time with my bat," he said, his voice low and steady. Lily nodded, her heart beating faster under his gaze. "It trusts me now," she said softly. "It's not just a bat. It's more than that." The Vampire King's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something that hinted at a deeper understanding. "Yes," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "It is part of something much older, much more powerful than you can imagine. And now, so are you." Lily swallowed hard. "What does that mean? What am I supposed to do with all of this?" The Vampire King stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "You are part of this world now, Lily. You've awakened something in the bat that hasn't been seen in centuries. That bond between you and it." He paused, his gaze darkening. "It's not just a bond. It's a tie to the power that controls everything in this land. The magic that flows through the bat, through the castle, through me, now it flows through you too." Lily felt a chill run down her spine as the gravity of his words sank in. She wasn't just a girl from a small village anymore. She was connected to something far greater, something that could change the course of everything. "I don't want this," she said, her voice shaking. "I never asked for any of this. I just wanted to help." The Vampire King's gaze softened for a moment, but it was quickly replaced by the same cold, calculating look he always wore. "You don't get to choose, Lily," he said, his voice firm. "No one chooses this power. It chooses you." Lily took a step back, her mind racing. She had never asked for this life, never wanted to be part of the Vampire King's dark world. But now, it seemed there was no way out. She was inextricably tied to it, whether she liked it or not. "What do you expect from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The Vampire King's gaze held hers for a long moment before he spoke again, his words heavy with meaning. "I expect you to embrace your place in this world, Lily. The power that you and the bat share is something that could change everything. But it also comes with a price. You will be tested, just as I have been tested for centuries. And you will be forced to choose. Will you wield this power, or will it consume you?" Lily stared at him, her heart pounding. The weight of his words pressed down on her like a storm, and for the first time, she realized the true cost of what she had become. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She was now part of something much darker, much more dangerous than she had ever imagined. "And what if I refuse?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear swirling inside her. The Vampire King's lips curved into a cold smile. "You don't have a choice. You're already bound to this world, to me, and to the bat. You can either embrace your role, or you can be swept away by it." Lily's mind raced as the enormity of the situation began to sink in. She had always known she was different, but she had never imagined that difference would lead her down this dark path. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The Vampire King stepped closer, his gaze intense. "Now, you will learn what it means to be part of this world. You will train, you will learn to control the power that now flows through you. And you will be prepared for the challenges ahead. Because this world will not let you go so easily." Lily felt a shiver run down her spine as the reality of her situation hit her. She was no longer just a girl. She was now part of the Vampire King's world, a world filled with danger, power, and a destiny she couldn't escape. In the days that followed, Lily struggled to come to terms with her new reality. The Vampire King's words haunted her. She had entered a world far beyond her understanding, a world that demanded more than she was ready to give. But now, there was no turning back. The Bat, the Vampire King, and the power that now flowed through her, they were all connected in ways she couldn't yet explain. The Vampire King had made it clear that she would be trained, but what did that mean? What would she be trained to do? And what role did she play in this dark world? As Lily pondered these questions, she found herself standing in the castle's grand library one afternoon. The vast room, filled with towering shelves of ancient books, was both intimidating and fascinating. She had always been curious, and now, she was determined to learn as much as she could. She was no longer just a simple girl from a village. She had to understand this world, its history, and the powers that bound it together. But as she reached for one of the many dusty tomes on a high shelf, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "You're still here." The Vampire King's voice was calm, but there was a sharpness to it that sent a ripple of unease through her. She turned to face him, her heart racing at his sudden appearance. "I was looking for answers," she said, trying to steady her breath. "I need to know what this all means." The Vampire King studied her for a moment before walking deeper into the library. "Answers are not easy to come by," he said, his voice low. "You have to seek them yourself, Lily. You must be prepared to face what is coming." Lily followed him, her mind racing. "What's coming?" she asked. "I don't know," he replied, his gaze darkening. "But this world is full of dangers, some known, some unknown. And now that you are a part of it, you will have to face them." Lily's chest tightened at the thought. She had known there would be challenges, but the weight of the unknown was heavy. She had no idea what she was supposed to do, but one thing was clear. The Vampire King had been alive for centuries. He had seen things, experienced things, that she couldn't even begin to understand. If she was to survive in this world, she would need to learn from him. "What do I need to do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the anxiety gnawing at her. The Vampire King paused, his amber eyes piercing through her. "You must learn control," he said. "Control over the power that flows through you. Control over your emotions. And control over the bat. You are bound to it now, whether you like it or not." Lily's thoughts raced. "How do I control it?" she asked. "You will learn," the Vampire King replied. "But it won't be easy. The bat is a reflection of your own power. It is wild, untamed, just like the magic that courses through you. To control it, you must first understand it. And to understand it, you must understand yourself." The words hung heavy in the air, and Lily felt the weight of them sink into her chest. She had never thought of herself as powerful. She had always been just a simple girl, doing what was necessary to survive. But now, she was part of something far greater. She had a connection to the bat, to the Vampire King, and to a magic that she didn't understand. "What do you want from me?" Lily asked, her voice quiet. The Vampire King's eyes softened, just a little. "I want you to be ready," he said, his voice more gentle than before. "There will come a time when you must choose your path, and you must be prepared to face the consequences of that choice." Lily didn't fully understand what he meant, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer just a bystander in this world. She was part of it now, and whatever came next, she would have to face it head on. Over the next few days, Lily's training began. The Vampire King taught her how to tap into the power that flowed through her veins. It wasn't easy. The magic was wild, unpredictable, and often dangerous. But with each lesson, Lily grew stronger. She learned to control her emotions, to remain calm in the face of fear, and to harness the energy that pulsed within her. The bat, too, responded to her. It no longer flinched at her touch, no longer recoiled from her presence. Instead, it followed her wherever she went, its wings folding protectively around her as if it sensed the change within her. The connection between them grew deeper, and Lily began to understand that the bat was not just a creature of the Vampire King's power. It was her ally, her companion in this strange, new world. As the days turned into weeks, Lily's bond with the bat became undeniable. But despite her growing power, there was still a sense of unease. She didn't fully trust the Vampire King, and she didn't fully trust herself. She had been thrust into a world she didn't ask for, and every step she took in it felt like stepping further into the unknown. But one evening, as she sat alone in the garden, the bat perched beside her, she realized something. She was no longer just a girl from a village. She was part of something much larger now. She had power, and with it, responsibility. The path ahead was uncertain, but she knew one thing. She would face whatever came next with the strength she had found within herself. And with the bat by her side, she knew she was no longer alone. In the weeks that followed, Lily's life in the Vampire King's castle became both a series of intense training and an ongoing struggle to accept her new reality. The Vampire King had made it clear that her connection with the bat was just the beginning. There was more to her power than she had ever imagined, and now she was being trained to use it. The lessons were grueling, each one pushing her limits. She spent hours each day learning how to channel the wild, unpredictable magic that flowed through her veins. The Vampire King was relentless in his training, pushing her to understand her abilities and harness them. Sometimes, he would take her into the castle's hidden chambers, where ancient symbols covered the walls and dark energy lingered in the air like a heavy fog. These were places she had never dared to enter before. The magic was palpable, and every time she stepped into these rooms, she felt the weight of centuries of power. "Focus, Lily," the Vampire King would say, his voice steady, yet carrying a sharp edge. "Control it. Control your fear. Your magic is tied to your emotions. If you let it slip, if you lose control, everything around you will burn." His words echoed in her mind, reminding her of the power she now wielded. It was terrifying, but it also made her feel alive in a way she had never experienced before. She was learning to control her emotions, her anger, her fear, but the hardest part was learning to trust herself. Every time she thought she had mastered one aspect of her power, something new would challenge her. And every time, she grew stronger. But the more she trained, the more questions she had. There were moments when she couldn't shake the feeling that something was being kept from her. The Vampire King had said she was bound to the bat, but what did that truly mean? And why had the bat chosen her? One evening, as the castle was bathed in the eerie glow of moonlight, Lily found herself in the garden again, the bat perched silently beside her. The Vampire King had given her a rare moment of peace, allowing her to reflect on what she had learned so far. But as she sat there, lost in thought, the bat suddenly let out a soft, almost imperceptible cry, its wings fluttering restlessly. Lily turned her gaze toward it, her heart pounding. Something was wrong. The bat's eyes were wide, its body tense, as if it sensed something in the air. She stood up quickly. The weight of her own power suddenly felt more real than ever. Her connection with the bat was deepening, and she could sense its fear. It wasn't just the creature being afraid, it was her, too. Lily felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know what was happening, but she knew it wasn't good. At that moment, she heard footsteps approaching. The Vampire King appeared in the distance, his figure looming tall against the shadows. His eyes locked onto hers, and she could see the intensity in his gaze. He had been watching her, just as he always did. "Something's happening," Lily said, her voice tight. "I can feel it. The bat, it's not just afraid. It's trying to tell me something." The Vampire King's expression hardened, and he walked toward her, his eyes never leaving the bat. "I feared this day would come," he murmured under his breath. "The bat's connection to you is not just a bond of magic. It's something deeper, something that ties you to this world in ways you do not yet understand." Lily took a step back, her heart racing. "What do you mean? What's happening?" "The bat is an ancient creature," the Vampire King said, his voice low and grave. "It is a part of a curse that has plagued my bloodline for centuries. And now, it seems that the curse is awakening. You, Lily, are connected to it in ways I never expected." Lily's stomach churned. She had always known that there was something more to her connection with the bat, but hearing the Vampire King speak of it in such a serious tone made her heart sink. "What does that mean for me?" she asked, her voice shaking. The Vampire King's gaze softened, but there was no warmth in it. Only a cold understanding of the weight they were both facing. "It means that you are bound to this curse, just as I am. And now, the curse is calling to you. You cannot escape it." Lily's thoughts raced. She had never asked for any of this. She had never asked for the power, the responsibility, or the connection with the bat. But now, it seemed that fate had chosen her, and there was no turning back. "What do I have to do?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You must face the curse, Lily," the Vampire King replied. "It will test you, just as it tested me. But you are not alone. The bat, and I, will be by your side." Lily nodded, though a part of her was terrified. She wasn't ready for this. She had only just begun to understand her powers. But the curse had awakened, and there was no escaping it. The bat cried out again, its wings fluttering restlessly. Lily turned to it, her heart heavy. She was no longer just a girl from a small village. She was part of a world that was ancient, dangerous, and full of secrets. And now, the curse was a part of her too. In the days that followed, the tension in the castle grew thicker. The Vampire King's words about the curse haunted Lily's every step. It felt as though the air itself was heavy with secrets, and with every passing moment, she felt the weight of her connection to the bat and the curse growing stronger. She had spent countless hours training with the Vampire King, learning to control her newfound powers, but even with all the progress she had made, the fear of the curse loomed large in her heart. She was no longer just a simple girl from a small village. She had become part of a world far darker and more dangerous than she could have imagined. And now, it seemed, the curse was calling to her. One evening, after another long and exhausting training session, Lily found herself wandering the halls of the castle, lost in thought. The silence of the stone walls seemed to amplify her unease. She had come to the castle to learn, to understand her place in this world. But the more she learned, the more questions arose. What was the curse? Why had it been placed on the Vampire King's bloodline? And why was she now tied to it? Her thoughts were interrupted when she heard a soft flutter of wings. Looking up, she saw the bat perched on a high ledge in the hallway, its glowing eyes watching her intently. There was something different in its gaze now, something urgent, as though it was trying to communicate with her. Lily hesitated for a moment before approaching. She had spent enough time with the bat to know it wasn't just a creature of darkness. It was her ally, her guide in this strange world. But even with that understanding, there was a sense of fear that still lingered in her chest. "What is it?" she whispered softly, her voice barely audible in the stillness of the castle. The bat let out a soft cry, its wings rustling as it hopped down from the ledge and flew toward her. Lily instinctively held out her hand, and to her surprise, the bat landed on her arm, its cool wings brushing against her skin. For a moment, everything felt still. She could feel the magic pulsing through the bat's wings, its connection to the curse and to the Vampire King. The bat looked at her with its piercing amber eyes, and in that instant, Lily understood. It wasn't just the Vampire King's power that was at risk, it was her own. She was bound to the curse as much as he was, and whatever fate awaited him would soon come for her too. The thought sent a chill down her spine. The bat shifted on her arm, and Lily gently stroked its wings, trying to calm herself. "What am I supposed to do?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. But the bat did not answer. It simply looked at her, as if waiting for her to make the next move. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath. She had known from the beginning that this was no ordinary path she was walking. She had been thrust into a world of power, of dark forces that controlled everything around her. And now, she realized, she was a part of it, whether she liked it or not. As if on cue, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway. The Vampire King appeared from the shadows, his amber eyes gleaming in the dim light. He stopped in front of Lily, his gaze locking onto the bat on her arm. "You feel it too," he said, his voice low and steady. Lily nodded, unable to find the words to express the overwhelming sense of dread that had settled over her. "What do I do now?" she asked, her voice trembling. The Vampire King studied her for a long moment before speaking. "You will face it. You will face the curse that binds us both." Lily's heart raced as she took a step back. "But I don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. "What is this curse? What does it mean for me?" The Vampire King's expression hardened, his gaze distant. "The curse is ancient," he said quietly. "It has been passed down through my bloodline for centuries. It is a power that binds us, that controls us, that keeps us from ever escaping. And now, it is awakening." Lily felt a wave of fear wash over her. "But why me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The Vampire King's eyes flickered with something like regret, but it was quickly replaced by the cold, calculating look he always wore. Because you are part of it now. The magic that binds you to the bat is the same magic that binds you to the curse. And now, you must choose. Lily's mind spun with the implications of his words. Choose what? She asked, her heart pounding. In her chest. The Vampire King stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Choose to face the curse, to confront it and break its hold on you. Or choose to let it consume you. There is no middle ground. Lily swallowed hard. The weight of his words felt suffocating, and for the first time, she wondered if she was truly ready for what lay ahead. How do I break it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The Vampire King's eyes softened, but there was no warmth in them. That, I cannot tell you. You must find the answer within yourself. With those words, the Vampire King turned and walked away, leaving Lily standing alone in the hallway with the bat perched on her arm. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. She didn't know what was coming, but she knew one thing. The curse was real, and now, it was a part of her too. She had no choice but to face it. And somehow, she would have to find a way to break free. In the days that followed, Lily found herself standing at the crossroads of destiny, unsure of the path she was meant to take. The curse, the Vampire King's warnings, and the growing power within her all weighed heavily on her heart. Her connection to the bat had deepened, but with it came an undeniable sense of fear and uncertainty. Each night, the bat would perch close by, its amber eyes watching her with a knowing gaze, as though it understood the battle she was facing within herself. She had trained, learned to control her magic, but something still felt incomplete. Something was missing. It was one of those nights, when the castle was bathed in a silvery moonlight, that Lily stood on the balcony, looking out over the darkened landscape. The wind whipped through her hair, carrying with it the scents of the night. She felt alone, despite the presence of the bat and the castle's eerie quiet. The Vampire King's words lingered in her mind. You must choose. Choose. The weight of it sat heavily on her chest. How could she choose when she didn't even know what the right choice was? The more she thought about the curse, the more she realized how little she understood. It was ancient, tied to the very bloodline of the Vampire King, and now, it was tied to her as well. She had no answers, only questions. As she stood lost in thought, she felt a sudden presence behind her. The Vampire King had come to join her, his silhouette a dark shadow against the moonlit sky. You are troubled, he said, his voice calm yet filled with an intensity that made her shiver. She didn't turn to face him at first. Instead, she gazed out at the vast, empty lands before her. I don't know what to do, she admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel lost. The curse, the bat, the power, none of it makes sense to me. The Vampire King remained silent for a moment, his piercing amber eyes studying her from the shadows. Then he stepped closer, his footsteps silent on the stone floor. The curse is not something that can be easily understood, he said, his voice softer now, almost gentle. It is a part of me, a part of my bloodline. And now, it is a part of you. But you must understand this. The curse is not a force that controls you. It is a test. Lily turned to face him then, her heart pounding in her chest. A test? She asked, confused. What kind of test? He stepped closer, his presence commanding yet oddly comforting. A test of strength, of will. The curse is a reminder of the power that flows through our veins. It is a reminder that power, while it can give you everything you want, can also take everything from you. Lily's mind raced. She had always known that power came with consequences, but she had never imagined it would come in the form of a curse. And what happens if I fail the test? She asked, her voice trembling. The Vampire King's gaze softened, but his eyes remained intense. If you fail, the curse will consume you, he said simply. It will take your soul, and you will become nothing but a shadow of what you once were. The weight of his words hit Lily like a physical blow. The thought of being consumed by the curse, of losing herself entirely, terrified her. But even in the face of that fear, something inside her stirred. She was not ready to give up. Not yet. Then I won't fail, she said, her voice firm. I won't let it consume me. The Vampire King studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without warning, he placed his hand on her shoulder. Good, he said, his voice low and steady. Because the time to face the curse is fast approaching. You must be ready. For everything. His words sent a shiver down her spine, but she stood tall, determined. I am ready, she said, her voice filled with a quiet strength. The Vampire King nodded once, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the castle. Lily stood there for a long time, the weight of his words settling into her bones. The curse was coming, and now, more than ever, she had to face it. She could feel the bat's presence nearby, its eyes watching her, waiting. It was as though it knew that the time had come for them to face what was inevitable. Lily didn't know what would happen when she faced the curse, but one thing was certain. She would not face it alone. The bat would be with her, and the Vampire King's words echoed in her mind. You must choose. What choice would she make? The one that would keep her alive, or the one that would let the curse consume her? Only time would tell. In the days that followed, Lily felt the weight of the curse pressing down on her with every step she took. The Vampire King had warned her, and now the time had come to face what she had been dreading. She had no choice but to prepare herself for what lay ahead. The power inside her had grown stronger, but with it came the constant reminder of the curse that bound her to the bat and to the Vampire King's bloodline. It was a force beyond her control, a reminder that her life had changed in ways she couldn't have imagined. The castle had become both a sanctuary and a prison. Every day, Lily trained relentlessly, learning how to control the magic that pulsed through her veins. She spent hours with the bat, learning to communicate with it, understanding the deep bond they shared. It was no longer just a creature that followed her around. It was part of her, a reflection of the power that now coursed through her body. But as much as she tried to control it, Lily could feel the darkness of the curse, lurking just beneath the surface. One evening, after another long day of training, Lily found herself standing in the castle's library. She had always found solace in books, but tonight, the quiet seemed suffocating. The weight of the Vampire King's words echoed in her mind. You must choose. It was a choice she hadn't wanted to make, but now it seemed inevitable. She had to face the curse. But what would happen once she did? Would she break free from it, or would it consume her? As she pondered these questions, the sound of wings fluttering caught her attention. Looking up, she saw the bat perched on a nearby shelf, its amber eyes fixed on her. It had been unusually quiet lately, as if it too sensed the impending confrontation. Lily felt a strange sense of peace as she approached it. The bat had always been a source of comfort, a reminder that she was not alone. She reached out, and the bat hopped onto her arm, its wings brushing against her skin. What should I do? She whispered, more to herself than to the bat. But it was as if the creature understood. It nuzzled against her arm, offering a silent reassurance. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hall. Lily turned to see the Vampire King approaching, his figure dark against the dimly lit background. His amber eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Are you ready? He asked, his voice low and steady. Lily nodded, though the words felt heavy in her throat. I have no choice, she replied. The curse is here. It's part of me now. The Vampire King stepped closer, his gaze never leaving her. You don't have to face it alone, he said. I will be with you. But you must understand this. The curse will not be easy to defeat. It will test everything about you, your strength, your will, your heart. But if you succeed, you will break free. If you fail, it will consume you. Lily swallowed hard. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. But despite the fear coursing through her, she knew she couldn't back down now. I will fight it, she said, her voice steady. I will face it, no matter the cost. The Vampire King studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without another word, he turned and began walking toward the castle's inner sanctum. Lily hesitated for only a moment before following him. As they walked, the air seemed to grow colder, the shadows deepening around them. The Vampire King led her to a vast chamber deep within the castle. The room was filled with ancient symbols carved into the stone, their meanings lost to time. In the center of the room stood a large stone altar, its surface worn and covered in centuries of dust. The bat fluttered nervously on her arm, its wings twitching as if it could sense the impending danger. This is where it begins, the Vampire King said, his voice echoing in the empty chamber. This is where you will face the curse. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine as she looked around the room. The magic in the air was thick and heavy, and she could feel it pressing against her skin. It was as though the very walls were alive with ancient power. "What do I need to do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The Vampire King stepped aside, his amber eyes glinting in the dim light. "You must accept the curse," he said. "Only then can you begin to fight it. But remember this. Accepting the curse does not mean you are submitting to it. It means you are acknowledging its power. And in doing so, you will find the strength to break it." Lily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She could feel the power of the curse stirring inside her, its dark energy swirling just beneath the surface. It was like a storm, ready to consume her. But she would not let it. She would face it head-on. Stepping forward, Lily placed her hand on the altar. The moment her skin touched the cold stone, a wave of energy surged through her, and the room seemed to come alive. The symbols on the walls began to glow, their meanings unlocking in her mind. The curse was ancient, its roots deep in the Vampire King's bloodline. But now, it was a part of her. And with that realization, Lily understood what she had to do. She had to face the curse, accept its power, and in doing so, find the strength to break free. The Vampire King's voice broke through her thoughts. "This is your moment, Lily. You are not alone. You have the power to defeat the curse." Lily nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She was ready. She had to be. With a final, steadying breath, she closed her eyes and let the power of the curse wash over her, determined to face whatever came next. The battle for her soul had begun. In the moments that followed, the world seemed to collapse around Lily. As her hand rested on the stone altar, the magic of the curse surged within her, wild and untamed. The ancient symbols on the walls flared to life, their eerie glow casting shadows across the chamber. The power was overwhelming, more intense than anything she had felt before. It was as if the very fabric of the castle was alive with the energy of the curse, and now, it was fully awakened inside her. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her breath came in short, shallow gasps. The bat, still perched on her arm, seemed to stir restlessly, sensing the intensity of the moment. It was as if the creature was trying to warn her, urging her to pull back. But Lily didn't. She couldn't. The Vampire King's voice echoed in her mind. "You must face it. Accept it." She had no choice now. The curse was part of her, just as the bat was. She had to confront it, no matter how terrifying it was. As the magic surged through her, Lily's vision blurred, and she felt herself being pulled into a deep, dark void. The room around her seemed to disappear, leaving her alone in the darkness. She tried to call out, but her voice was swallowed by the silence. The power within her was overwhelming, and she could feel the curse trying to take control, to consume her. For a moment, it felt as though she was losing herself, slipping away into the very thing she feared most. But then, she heard it. A voice, soft but firm, cutting through the chaos. "You are stronger than this, Lily. Don't let it consume you." It was the Vampire King's voice. She couldn't see him, but she could feel his presence, like a guiding force in the darkness. "You are not alone. The bat is with you." The words echoed in her mind, grounding her, reminding her that she wasn't fighting this battle by herself. She took a deep breath, focusing on the bat. She could feel its presence, not just as an animal, but as a part of her, connected by the very magic that bound them both. Slowly, the darkness around her began to recede, and she found herself standing in the chamber once again, her hands still resting on the altar. The curse was still inside her, but she had faced it, and she had survived. She opened her eyes, feeling the power within her settle, like a storm that had finally passed. But the feeling of the curse still lingered, its weight pressing down on her. She had not defeated it. Not yet. But she had taken the first step. Lily looked around, and the Vampire King was standing in front of her. His amber eyes watched her with an unreadable expression. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, the Vampire King nodded. "You did it," he said quietly, his voice filled with a rare sense of approval. "You have faced the curse, and you have not been consumed. That is the first step." Lily stood tall, her heart still racing. "But it's not over," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that still lingered inside her. "The curse is still here. It's still a part of me. The Vampire King's gaze softened, though the coldness in his eyes remained. No, it's not over, he agreed. But you've shown that you have the strength to control it, to face it when it tries to overwhelm you. That is the key. He stepped closer, his presence commanding yet strangely comforting. The curse will always be a part of you. But now, you have the power to decide how much of it you let control you. That is your choice. Lily nodded, the weight of his words settling in her chest. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for sure. She was not the same person she had been when she first arrived at the castle. She was stronger, more connected to the magic within her. But she was also more aware of the dangers that lay ahead. The curse was still there, waiting for her to slip, to fail. But now, Lily knew she had a chance. She wasn't alone. She had the bat. She had the Vampire King. And most importantly, she had herself. She would face whatever came next with everything she had. The Vampire King's voice broke through her thoughts. You've taken the first step, but there is more to be done, he said. The curse is only one part of the challenge you face. There are those who would seek to use you, to control the power within you. You must be prepared for what lies ahead. Lily met his gaze, her eyes filled with determination. I will be ready, she said firmly. I will fight for control. I will fight to break the curse, no matter what it takes. The Vampire King studied her for a moment, his amber eyes flickering with something unreadable. Then, he nodded, his expression softening just slightly. Then, you have already proven yourself worthy. With those words, he turned and began to walk away, his dark cloak trailing behind him. Lily stood still for a moment, the weight of the situation settling into her bones. But she didn't feel afraid. For the first time, she felt the power within her, and she knew that she was ready. Ready to face whatever challenges came next. Ready to face the curse and to break free. In the days that followed, Lily felt the shift within herself. She was different, but in ways she couldn't fully explain. The Vampire King had given her the space to process everything, but there was no time to rest. The curse was still a threat, lurking in the background of her every thought, and the Vampire King's words lingered like a shadow. The curse is only one part of the challenge you face. There was more to this world, more forces at play, and Lily had yet to learn how deep the web of power truly went. It wasn't just the curse she had to fight against. There were others who would use her, who would try to control her because of the power she now possessed. She had already felt their eyes on her, even in the quiet halls of the castle. One evening, as she wandered the castle grounds, trying to make sense of her growing powers, the bat fluttered nearby, its wings cutting through the thick air. It was almost as if it was guiding her, reminding her of the connection they shared. The more time she spent with it, the more she understood it wasn't just a beast. The bat was a living extension of the curse. Its essence was linked to her own in ways that felt both powerful and dangerous. As Lily approached the castle's western tower, a cold wind blew through the ancient stone walls. It was in these halls that she had first felt the pull of the curse, the power that seemed to reach out for her. Tonight, the air was thick with a sense of foreboding. The bat landed gently on her shoulder, its amber eyes watching her intently. It seemed to be waiting for something, waiting for her to make the next move. Then she heard it, a soft voice from the shadows, like a whisper on the wind. You've come a long way, haven't you? Lily froze, her heart skipping a beat. Slowly, she turned around to see a figure emerging from the darkness, a man with dark, hooded eyes and a cloak that swirled around him like mist. He was tall, with an aura of power that made the air seem heavier. The Vampire King was nowhere to be seen, and for a moment, Lily wondered if this man was one of the many enemies she had yet to face. Who are you? She asked, her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. The man smiled faintly, a knowing, almost predatory grin. I am someone who has been watching you, Lily, watching the power inside you grow. He stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate, as though savoring the moment. The bat, the curse, it's all part of a much larger game. And you, my dear, are a key piece. Lily's chest tightened. She had heard whispers of enemies wanting to use her, but hearing it from this man's mouth made it all feel far too real. I don't want to play any game, she said firmly, though her voice shook with uncertainty. The man chuckled darkly. Oh, but you already are. And you don't even know the rules yet. He moved closer, his eyes glinting with something dark. The curse is only the beginning. There are others, much older than the Vampire King, who would use you for their own purposes. And they won't stop until they have what they want. Lily's mind raced. She had no idea what this man was talking about, but his words made her heart race with dread. What do you want from me? She demanded, feeling a surge of frustration. The man smiled again, this time more cruelly. What I want is irrelevant. What matters is that you understand. You cannot escape what you are now. You're tied to this world, Lily, and sooner or later, you will have to choose. Accept your fate and claim your power, or fight against it and lose everything. Lily swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath. The weight of his words was suffocating, but she knew she couldn't back down now. She was already a part of this world, whether she liked it or not, and she would fight for control, for her own destiny. I don't need your power, she said, her voice gaining strength. I will choose my own path. The man's smile widened, but there was no kindness in it. We'll see, he said softly, before turning and disappearing into the shadows as quickly as he had come. Lily stood there for a moment, her heart still racing, trying to process what had just happened. She had faced the curse, but this was something entirely different. She had been warned. The world she had entered wasn't just filled with dark magic and the power of the Vampire King. There were others, more dangerous, more ancient, waiting for her to make a move. And she had no idea how deep the game went. As Lily turned to head back toward the castle, the bat took flight, its wings cutting through the air with a silent grace. It landed once again on her shoulder, its presence comforting yet unsettling. I'm not alone, she whispered, though she wasn't sure if that thought was meant to reassure her or if it was another truth she would have to come to terms with. She was no longer just a girl from a village. She was now a player in a world of power, and she would have to learn how to navigate it if she hoped to survive. But the question still lingered. Who could she trust? The Vampire King, or the mysterious figures who sought to control her? Only time would tell. In the days that followed, Lily found herself grappling with the weight of the choices before her. The encounter with the mysterious man had shaken her, but it had also fueled her resolve. She had been warned that there were powerful forces at work, forces that would stop at nothing to control her, and now, she knew her place in this world was more precarious than she had imagined. She couldn't afford to be passive anymore. The bat's presence was constant, perched beside her like a guardian, a reminder that she wasn't alone. Yet, despite its silent reassurance, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something darker than she had yet encountered. The Vampire King had been distant lately, giving her space to process the intensity of her training and the curse that now lived within her. But as she spent more time in the castle, wandering its cold stone halls, she felt a growing sense of unease. The castle itself seemed to be watching her, the walls echoing with secrets and untold stories. One evening, as the bat flew silently beside her, Lily found herself standing in the grand hall of the castle. The dim, flickering light from the chandeliers cast long shadows on the walls, and the silence was deafening. She hadn't expected to see the Vampire King there, but he stood near the large fireplace, his back turned to her as he gazed into the flames. The firelight reflected in his amber eyes, giving them an almost otherworldly glow. He didn't turn when she entered the room, but his voice came low, like a whisper in the stillness. You felt it, haven't you? Lily hesitated before answering. She wasn't sure what he meant, but somehow, she knew he wasn't talking about just the curse. What do you mean? She asked, her voice cautious. The pressure, he said, finally turning to face her. The growing threat. It's not just the curse you face, Lily. There are forces in this world that would see you fall under their control, and they won't hesitate to use any means necessary to make that happen. Lily's heart began to race. But what can I do? She asked, her voice trembling. You've already done more than most would even dare to attempt, the Vampire King said, his gaze piercing. But this is just the beginning. There are others out there, other vampires, other creatures who seek to control the power you now possess. The curse, the bat, they are more than just chains. They are the key to something much greater. And if you don't learn how to wield that power, it will consume you. Lily's chest tightened at his words. She had already faced so much, and yet it seemed like the true battle was only just beginning. The Vampire King's gaze softened, but there was a hard edge to his expression. I know you are afraid, he continued, his voice steady. But fear is the one thing that can stop you from realizing your true potential. If you let it control you, if you let it define you, then you will never be able to break free from the curse. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine. She had always known that fear was something she had to overcome, but she had never felt it so strongly as she did now. "How do I stop it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The Vampire King stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "You must confront it," he said, his eyes burning with intensity. "Face it head on, without hesitation. Only then will you understand the true nature of the curse, and only then will you be able to break free from its grip." For a moment, Lily just stood there, her mind racing. How could she confront something so powerful, so ancient? She had always fought to survive, to protect those she loved, but this was different. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. The Vampire King's words echoed in her mind, and she knew he was right. She had to face the fear, face the curse, and face the power that was now within her. She couldn't keep running from it. "I will do it," Lily said, her voice firm with newfound resolve. "I will face it. I won't let it control me." The Vampire King's lips curved into a slight smile, though his eyes remained intense. "Good," he said simply. "You've taken the first step." With that, he turned and began to walk toward the grand staircase. "Come," he said over his shoulder, his tone softer now. "There is much to learn, and time is running out." Lily followed him, her steps determined. She was ready. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She would face it. She would face the curse, and whatever else came her way. She would fight. She had to. The path ahead was uncertain, and the dangers were real. But for the first time in a long time, Lily felt something she hadn't felt before: hope. Not just for herself, but for the world she had come to be a part of. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with, and she would not let fear stop her. In the days that followed, Lily's training intensified. The path she had chosen, the decision to face the curse head-on, was not an easy one. Every day, she woke to the weight of her newfound power, the unrelenting presence of the bat, and the haunting knowledge that the forces of darkness were closing in on her. The Vampire King had been her guide through this chaotic world, but even he seemed to be growing more distant. His cold eyes studied her with a mixture of pride and something else she couldn't quite place. She was no longer the uncertain girl who had stumbled into his castle. She was becoming something else, something dangerous, something he had warned her about from the start. Yet, Lily couldn't deny that there was a strength growing inside her. The more she faced the curse, the more control she gained over it. Her bond with the bat had deepened, and she now understood it in ways that went beyond mere magic. The bat was not just an extension of the curse. It was a part of her, a reflection of her inner strength and her ability to overcome the darkness that sought to consume her. The day arrived when Lily was summoned to the throne room. The air was thick with tension as she approached the massive doors, each step feeling heavier than the last. The Vampire King was already waiting for her, his silhouette standing tall and regal, as though he had been expecting her all along. "You've grown stronger," he said, his voice steady but his gaze betraying something like concern. "But the time is coming when you will have to prove it." Lily met his gaze, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what he meant, but she could feel the weight of his words. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. The Vampire King stepped forward, his eyes dark and focused. "The curse is not just a trial. It is a war that you are now a part of. There are those who would seek to control you, to take what you have, and the bat, the power within you, will either be your weapon or your undoing." The gravity of his words hit her like a physical blow. Lily had always known that the curse was more than just a mark. It was a force that connected her to something far darker. But hearing the Vampire King speak of it in such a way made it feel more real, more dangerous. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear swirling inside her. The Vampire King's amber eyes locked onto hers, filled with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. "You must prepare yourself," he said simply. "The battle will come. You must face those who seek to control you, and you must decide whether to embrace your power or let it destroy you." His words were a warning, a challenge, and a promise all at once. But Lily knew she had no choice but to accept it. She had already chosen this path, and there was no turning back. The Vampire King's gaze softened, but the intensity never left. The curse will be your greatest enemy, but it will also be your greatest strength. If you can master it, you will have the power to change everything. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, yet strangely comforting. But remember, Lily, there is always a cost. She nodded, understanding that the cost was not something easily measured. Power, no matter how great, always came with a price. The question was whether she was willing to pay it. I understand, she said quietly, her voice steady. I'll face the battle. I'll face the curse. The Vampire King regarded her with a mixture of approval and something else, something almost like fear. For a moment, they both stood in silence, the weight of the world pressing down on them. The Vampire King was silent for a long time, his gaze never leaving her. Finally, he spoke again, his voice softer this time. You're ready, he said, his tone almost gentle. But remember, Lily, even the strongest can fall. You must be prepared for whatever comes next. Lily took a deep breath, her chest heavy with the knowledge that her journey had only just begun. She didn't know what awaited her, but she knew one thing for sure. She would face it. She had no choice. The power, the curse, the bat, they were all a part of her now, and she would fight for control. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for her future, for the chance to break free from the curse that bound her, and for the strength to overcome the darkness that threatened to consume her. The path ahead was uncertain, but she was ready. She had been tested, and she had proven that she could rise above the fear, above the darkness. And now, she would face whatever came next with the strength she had found within herself. The bat fluttered beside her, its wings cutting through the air with a quiet grace. It was a symbol of her power, but also of her connection to this world. This dark, dangerous world that she had come to call home. Lily didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. She would not let fear control her. She would face the curse, face the Vampire King's enemies, and face the darkness, no matter what it took. The battle for her soul had begun,